What's up, guys? I'm Chris Reynolds, Charlotte 49er all-time leading passer and professional quarterback. I'm calling all quarterbacks to take their game to the next level, not only physically, but mentally. With 50 career starts and thousands of snaps under my belt, I've experienced many of the do's and don'ts of this game. Join me for a one-on-one quarterback session to improve your biomechanics that allows us to throw with more velocity, accuracy, and efficiency. Have a better understanding of defensive scheme and strategy, and create more efficient footwork. Or join me on Sundays at New Age Athlete from 10 to 11 for a Sunday group recovery and polish to recharge the batteries for a new week. When it comes to film study, I offer in-season, one-on-one, Zoom, or in-person sessions to have a better understanding of how opponents try to attack us and to evaluate your play so we can improve for the following week. All options are on my Calendly link, calendly.com/Chris Reynolds QB, or you can find more information on my Instagram page at Chris Reynolds QB Training. I have a deep passion for this game, and I'm excited to take everything that I learned to take the younger QBs to another level. As always, roll Niners.
Welcome back to the Highway 49 podcast. We are back with episode 80 of the show. It feels like we've done a lot of these together now. We're here breaking down Charlotte's Week 3 victory over Gardner-Webb. There was a lot going on at Richardson Stadium Saturday night, and we're going to break all that down. Some news with Charlotte's athletic director Mike Hill getting a contract extension. Just a ton going on around the program now. But as always, before we dive into it, let's hit the best thing we've seen this week. Jeremy, you got the whole new setup going on, so tell us what's up, man.
Whole new setup, but we're going with the constant for the past how many weeks and episodes. It's my queen, A'ja Wilson. She became the first WNBA player to score 1,000 points in the regular season, which is massive. At this point, she's just approaching GOAT territory. If she keeps it up, they have a chance to three-peat this year. They're the 4 seed right now, one game ahead of the 5 seed, so we'll see how that plays out. But A'ja Wilson, I mean, Aces are starting to turn a corner, starting to play right at the right time that we always hear coaches talk about. You want to, start playing better near the end of the season, getting ready for playoffs. So the best thing I've seen this week has to be my queen giving somebody a nice shimmy mid-range shot to get the 1,000 points, just a perfect way to encapsulate her season. A'ja Wilson, she keeps defying the odds. Hunter, how about you?
Yeah, man. I would say a couple things. Saturday night, got to catch up with Tom Whitestone, Charlotte's SID for ever, and that was awesome. Turned around and saw Tom. I was like, no way, man. So awesome to see him. We need to get him on the pod, man. I feel like that would be kind of fun. And then Sunday, Jeremy, for this as well, we got to cover first NFL game. That was a wild experience. We talked about it some last night. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily feel like the NFL watching the Panthers play football, but just awesome to be in that environment and around that, I guess, caliber of reporter and feeling like you're in a room where you can learn a ton of stuff. So that was awesome, being able to kind of interact with the players and see what it's like at that level. It was really exciting. But yeah, Hannah, how about yourself?
Well, the best thing I've seen can't be the Panthers. So we're just gonna move on from that. But I was up in Elon on Saturday and it was really just exciting to be back. I mean, it's always fun to go to different colleges and see the way that they do things. And Elon's kind of a family-based vibe, and it's always just really fun to go there and just it was a home opener. They lost to Western Carolina, unfortunately, but it was just really cool to be back on the sidelines for the football season. So I'm really excited. They have 2 more home games, like back to back. So I'll be there for all the home games this season. So really excited to just be back in action, watching some college football, doing what I love. So I'm just really grateful to be back for a second season with them. So. But more about college football, guys. 27-26 win over Gardner-Webb. You guys were there. I caught a little bit of the fourth quarter after Elon's game was done, but just what were your takeaways and what did you observe in that crazy, crazy game?
Before we get to it, I want to give a quick shout out to two people. First, Blake Rose writes for the Niner Times. I think he's like a chief editor. Blake, he was sitting next to us in the press box, and there was a lady whose name was Molly Wharton. She's a freelance writer, I think, for the Charlotte Ledger. I want to make sure I get everything right with everybody. And Blake was trying to explain to her how this Biff Poggi era has, happened from a student perspective. We always talk about how it is from a reporter perspective, you're covering it, or maybe a fan perspective. But as a student, as someone who is paying tuition to earn a degree at this institution, and you pour everything into every sporting team, whether that's volleyball to football to anything. And it was cool to hear his perspective. So Blake also came up to us and said, "Hey, I really love the pod." Um, he always tries to get a listen in whenever he can. And I'm like, yo, thank Hunter. I just talk gibberish on there. He's the one who's editing the pods and doing all the other stuff. But so number one, shout out to Blake Rose. Number two, shout out to Benjamin Edwards. I want to make sure I get his name right. Yes, Benjamin Edwards. So after the game, we're about to head to the press conference, and we see some guy like walking by the press box down low, and he makes eye contact with me, and he's like mouthing a word, and I'm like, "What?" And he says it again. I'm like, "What are you talking about, dude? Like, I don't know what you're saying." And then he's like, "Get Hunter, get Hunter." So I get Hunter, and Hunter tries to hear what he's saying. And I think like
Thought it was Twitter.
we thought like maybe he said Twitter. So we're like, okay. But an hour later, he follows us both. And then he says he's a big fan of the pod and he can't wait to hear the pod with Hannah Brady, Jeremy Grandison, and Hunter Bailey. And he's just awesome. We love to hear and just get support from you guys. It validates what we do, because sometimes it's like, man, going to these games are tough as a fan, as a reporter, trying to get these stories out, trying to cover this team. And when you get feedback like that, it's the best thing ever. So, Benjamin, we're going to get to some of your questions down in the mailbag as well. But shout out to Blake Rose and Benjamin Edwards. Now, to the important part.
You know why we're here.
You know why we're here.
Let's get into it.
Man, a tale of two halves, man, right? With the JMU game, Coach Poggi said it felt like two different teams, and that's how it was in this game, but just flip the halves. They
Yep.
looked terrible in the first half. They looked like world beaters in the second half. And that's partially because they put Trexler Ivey in, which is, I guess, where I'll throw you into here, Hunter. What the hell do you make of that game? Because
Yeah.
at this point, the fan base doesn't seem like they're on Biff's side. The quarterback controversy is back, just like it was last year. This feels like a deja vu filled weekend. I just want to get your perspective on it.
Definitely. And I'll get to the deja vu in a minute, but I do want to say one thing. If Charlotte has Max Brown in this game, they handle business, and this is a different side. I think that could also be said about if Trexler Ivey were to have played all 4 quarters. We saw what he did in 3 drives, but I just want to get that out of the way. What happened at Richardson Stadium Saturday night is tough on the fan base for multiple reasons. And you start with the crowd. That crowd was awesome. 16,700 people, I believe, off the top of my head. The 4th biggest in program history. And you're hosting an FCS school. So that's a huge turnout for a game that you're expecting to win. And when you go into that game as 14-point favorites, you're trailing 17-0 at one point, 20-3. The crowd is going to start to empty out. You have to expect that as a football team, as a head coach. And I mean, we heard it at Panthers game yesterday, Jeremy. I mean, they're getting booed off the field at halftime. Like, that's the nature of football. Fans want to see their teams succeed. And when they don't, that's kind of the boomerang effect of it. That game Saturday night, though, saw Gardner-Webb, in my mind, dominate Charlotte for really 3 quarters of action. The second half, Charlotte did start to fight back. You could see the defense was making plays. Ali with 2 interceptions. Mike Kelly Lawson with an interception. I always think it's sick when a defensive end gets a pick. I mean, that's his first career interception. That was a wild play for him. And shout out to Mike, who's been around this program for a really long time. But you're right. The game changed when Trexler Ivey came in the game. We asked Biff, right? Was there any thought of switching from Purdy to Trexler at the half? And the answer was no. You don't want to kill a 3-star prospect's confidence. And I understand that point. We'll expand on that later. But Saturday night, it seemed like Biff Poggi was coaching for his job. when you think about what the meaning of that game is for Charlotte. If you go 0-3 and lose at home to Gardner-Webb, that's a big hit on your resume, and that's something that you can't have in this position. So when Ivy comes in, the game changes, right? He's 11 for 12, 140 plus yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdown drives. And the game, it was like as soon as the offense could get the ball rolling, the defense was just feasting on that. And that's exactly what they needed in the second half. We talked about the turnovers, but Jeremy, I want to throw it to you on this. There's a three play sequence that changed this game in my mind, and it's a Sports Center top 10 Sean Brown touchdown. I mean, one hand in the corner of the end zone fighting through pass interference. That we talked about Sean on the last episode with Chris. That was just an awesome moment for him. Ali gets an interception the very next play from scrimmage. Right after that, Hassan Wilson 40-yard touchdown. Charlotte's right back in this game. But Jeremy, I want to flip it back to you. In your mind, what was the point that this game changed, and was it Ivy for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna come in here and say it was like a certain play on third down or something. Like, no, you switch quarterbacks. That's what happened. And Biff said the same thing. This is why I have so many things swirling around my head right now. I'm trying to like get the right words out because I'll just say it. Like, I have people texting me like, Jeremy, why isn't Trexler Ivey in the game? I'm like, dog, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? Purdy looks rattled. Like it looks like he's seeing ghosts out there.
Which was night and day from last week. I want to point
Yeah.
out, like, he had a solid game against North Carolina.
And we'll get into maybe why that flipped, but then I have people texting me in the post game like, you need to ask coach why he didn't put Trexler in earlier. And Hunter, you asked that question, and we heard coach say like he's a true freshman. We don't want to shatter his confidence. We talked about this before the season started or after the JMU game. The macro versus the micro, right? The macro, I get it. You have a true freshman in DeShawn Purdie who you need to make sure that his confidence is intact in the long term, right? You want to make sure that if something ever happens again, you're not going to lose him in the portal or to somewhere else because he had a performance and you took him out first chance you could have. I get that. The micro is you're down 17-3 to an FCS school and you need to win this game. This is the game you have to win at home. Hunter, how many days had it been before this win? At home?
378 before the last home win.
It's been over a calendar year since you had a home win, right? So Biff, another crazy thing, he said that there were obvious gaps in Gardner-Webb's defense, and DeShawn Purdie didn't see them. But Trexler Ivey did see them. So if you knew Trexler Ivey saw those gaps, why do you still refrain from putting him in? If you know he could get the job done, are you sacrificing a win possibly to keep someone's confidence intact? Or are you trying to win the football game? And I never want to play the hypothetical game. And after this, I'll toss it back. I never want to play the hypothetical game, and I never want to wish injury or whatever. If Purdy doesn't get injured, what Biff's telling us is he's staying in for the whole game. They're getting boat raced. And then what's there to make of what happened in that game? I have no clue.
And that's the deja vu portion. So 2 years ago, Jeremy, I believe you covered this game as well. I know, Hannah, you were there. William and Mary came to Charlotte in week 2. Chris Reynolds gets hurt in week 1 at FAU. I made the trip to Boca. That was a tough game for Charlotte. And this is kind of the last straw for Will Healy. And they come home big favorites over William and Mary. And William and Mary is the more dominant team on the field the entire game. Charlotte's playing with a freshman quarterback, Xavier Williams, at the time. He showed some flashes in that game, just like I think Purdy did in this game. He showed a couple things. But the reality is Purdy fumbled the ball 3 times, took a knee instead of spiking the ball at the end of the first half, threw an interception, a pick 6 directly to Gardner-Webb's linebacker, and had a total of 5 turnover-worthy plays and took 6 sacks. You can't, like, after the game, Poggi said no one can say a word about your freshman quarterback. And I Agree. We're not bashing DeShawn Purdie. But these are the facts of what happened in the game, and that's part of what happens when you come to this level of college football, right? That's his second live game action, his first start. And Gardner-Webb did exactly what Chris Reynolds said he would do on this podcast. They blitzed him like crazy. They blitzed him on 55% of his snaps, resulting in 3 of the 5 turnover-worthy plays. But one thing I can say about Charlotte's offensive line is they managed the pressure for the most part. They all had good pass blocking grades, and Purdy was kept clean 74% of his dropbacks. So these plays are coming on Purdy, right? That's the tough part of it. He was running with the ball very free. He wasn't tucking when there was contact. That led to, I would say, all 3 of the fumbles. They only lost 2 of them. But that was the struggle, right? And then Trexler Ivey comes in the game, and they blitz him 33% of the time. He's never under pressure. As I mentioned, completes 11 of his 12 passes. They come back and win the game. One interesting stat I think there is the time to throw for each quarterback. So what we saw with Purdy was he was trying to extend some of the plays, whereas some of these sacks happened, and he was trying to make things happen when maybe his first read wasn't there. He felt the pocket collapsing around him. Purdy had 2.76 seconds to throw, which in my mind is pretty standard at the college level. He had enough time to extend some plays. Trexler Ivey was getting the ball out fast, though. Trexler is 2.12 seconds. But that was it, man. If that first read wasn't there, he was on to the second. And if not, he's burning the ball. And I think that was a little bit of the experience showing that Trexler got last year, because I'm not going to lie to you guys. Trexler Ivey did not have a great season last year for Charlotte. We all knew that. And the split starter stuff did not work for Charlotte. He played in 11 games last year. He did lead a 17-point comeback on the road against Tulsa. And I think you saw that magic kind of happen again. And I asked him after the game, does it get to a point where it's like, hey, put some respect on my name? Like, I can make stuff like this happen. I can get the huddle to buy in when I walk out there. And he said that Saturday night. He said, if I walk into that huddle and don't look confident, don't look ready to go, we're already behind the 8 ball. And you could tell, you heard what Sean Brown said. Sean Brown literally said, I don't want to say I told you so or I called it. But like, Trexler is built for those moments. And I think we asked Poggi after, and I'll open it up to you guys after this, but we asked Poggi after the game, is Trexler your guy moving forward? And Trexler's in the room, by the way. The whole setup that Charlotte's got going on is weird. The players are in the room while Poggi is talking. And so I knew, just ultimately it creates an awkward tension to ask a question like that. But Biff said, no, Purdy's our guy. When Max comes back, Max is our guy. And Trexler has a role as a reliever. And pending DeShawn Purdie's injury, because that was the flip in the game, a few minutes left in the third quarter, Purdy goes down with a leg injury. He wouldn't elaborate on what the injury was. After that, Ivey takes over, and Purdy's limping on the sideline for most of the game. To open it up to you guys, Hannah and Jeremy, we know some of Trexler Ivey's game, right? We saw him deal with struggles with pressure last year, throwing a couple bad interceptions. Where do you think this team is better set right now? Going with someone, a true freshman who Jeremy mentioned could be the future of the program, or going with someone like Trexler Ivey, a redshirt junior who knows the offense, has been with Mike Miller for 2 years now, and you kind of see that connection a little bit more?
I would say for me, obviously, I think Biff's trying to eliminate the whole dual quarterback system in saying I'm going to stick with DeShawn Purdie. But at the same time, you got to look at the stats. You got to look at who commanded and led that offense in the fourth quarter, and that was Trexler Ivey. And I also think he probably was watching that game and he saw everything that DeShawn Purdie was missing. And
Yeah.
I think his time on the bench and him just waiting for his chance, I think he has a chip on his shoulder. I mean, he even said, I watched the press conference that you posted. He said, what are they going to say now? I think he has a little bit of an edge that Charlotte needs right now. And I'm not discrediting anything that DeShawn Purdie can do, because we know he can play well, but he also has to have a little bit of maturity. I think inexperience was showing in this game against Gardner-Webb. And right now, what you need for this program is wins. And that's, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, who you're putting out there on the field, you need to win. for the fan base, for the program. And I think personally, based on the performance that Trexler Ivy put on in the fourth quarter, I believe that he should be the guy moving forward into Indiana. And then watch what happens, you know? If it doesn't work, figure it out. I think it's a week by week adjustment at this point.
And real fast before Jeremy goes, if in Biff Poggi's like ideology of this season, Saturday's game at Indiana is the last game of the preseason. We've talked on here is that's not how this works, right? You need 6 wins and you're cutting 4 opportunities at that if you consider this preseason. But in his mind, he continues to talk about preparing for league play. Go ahead, Jay.
Oh, the reason why I said deja vu filled weekend is because it's the same thing we saw with the Panthers. It's the
Yeah.
same thing where, okay, I hate to do this stuff, but like DeShawn Purdie's 18 years old. I get it. When I was 18, I was like a kid with like wet behind the ears. You don't really know anything. You think you know everything. You don't. And I don't want to talk down an 18-year-old, of course. And Biff, defending his quarterback, utmost respect for him. But this is college football, and you're playing an FCS team, and everybody is susceptible or open to criticism, constructive criticism. We're not bashing the guy. Same thing with Bryce Young, second-year quarterback, wet behind the ears, running for his life, making some dumb decisions where you scramble out to the left in the first quarter. You're telling your receivers, hey, keep running, and then you just get blitzed. Like, he got blown up on that play.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, here's the thing that sucks. If you put Andy Dalton in, do you have a better chance of winning that game? Yes, you do. You do. If you put Trexler Ivey in, do you have a better chance of winning that game? We saw what happened. You do. But what does it mean for your future? Because Trexler Ivey, we've seen what happened last year. And this feels like more of a flash in the pan, thing than a we can get to 6 wins now. We talked about it before. The lucky number is 6. If Trexler started the year, well, Max Brown was in the first game, but you got one game here, right? The Panthers could put Andy Dalton in and maybe win 2, 3, 4 games this year, maybe. But what does that ultimately do for where you want to go as a program? The macro versus the micro comes into play again. For me, I think it has to be Trex.
Yeah.
And it sucks to say because if you're Biff, you're saying like, I saw Trexler Ivey last year. The press conferences and the post games, or even like the exit interviews, he told us, what is the one thing we got to get better at? We need a better quarterback. The one position we got to get better at is quarterback. So if you're Biff, you're trying to not have to pull the Trex card until the last possible moment. And that moment came. And he told us in the press conference, he said, he looked at Trex and said, here we go again. And what did I tell you guys in the press conference? I mean, in the press box, Blake Rose, shout out to you again, and Hunter. I said, this one drive, the Trexler drive to go up or to tie the game, there's like 3 jobs on the line on this one drive.
Yeah.
You're depending on this guy, even though nice plane going up ahead of me. You're depending on this guy to beat an FCS school at home under the lights at night. And it's ridiculous to see this is where we got. But I don't only want to talk about the quarterback because, like you said, Hunter, Hassan Wilson, great play. Sean Brown, great play. Ali, great play. Charlie Jackson, who was from Gardner-Webb. We talked to him on Tuesday's press conference of last week. Ryan Osborne, we talked about this before, man. That defense is good. It's really good. And they started to fire on all cylinders in the second half. But you need the offense to do their job, right? You need all 3 levels of the offense, special teams, and defense to be able to scratch out wins. The first question I asked Biff in the press conference post-game was, you said 2 weeks ago after JMU, this team hasn't learned how to win games yet. Do you think that's changed because you were able to come back and have big plays by your playmakers on both offense and defense? And shout out the special teams guy, because 73-yard punt?
Yeah.
Nuts. I don't think they win this game last year.
Yeah.
So what do we take from that? Because we got to tip our cap to the other players on the team that's not just, under center taking the snaps.
Well, that's the thing, and I completely agree with what you said. But I think it's kind of a double-sided coin here. Is like, I don't even know if that's the right phrase. They did win this game last
Double-edged
year.
sword.
Yeah, double-edged sword. They did win this game last year. They were down 17 on the road to Tulsa. So was it
You're
down
right.
17 at home to an FCS? No, but I like those odds better than on the road against an FBS.
You're
And
right.
guess who was leading that charge? Trexler Ivey, on top of big time plays by the defense when it mattered most. And that's what Saturday night was. And you talked about Charlie Jackson. He had 4 quarterback hurries. Like, that's a Gardner-Webb transfer. He didn't necessarily get home, but he was in the backfield and he was active. And then someone that I want to shout out too is Lakota Dupree, switching from tight end to defensive end. He was Charlotte's highest graded defensive player in that game Saturday night. So I just want to shout him out coming off the edge. There were good things to take away for the defense. I think the harsh reality is you can't give up 19 points. We're taking the pick 6 out of it. And you can't give up 390 yards to a Gardner-Webb offense, especially when they're only rushing for 50, 55 yards in the game. Tyler Riddell, their quarterback, had his way in the first half. I mean, he was running all over the place, breaking out of sacks. And think about this, right? Here's another time to throw stat. I think it's really interesting. We talked about DeShawn Purdie holding the ball, trying to extend plays, 2.76 seconds. When Riddell was under pressure, he had 3.64 seconds to throw the ball. That's a whole extra second of time he's creating and making plays down the field. That leads to your coverage breakdowns. That leads to wide open guys running free, which happened in Saturday night's game. There's no way around that. What I thought changed, especially in the second half, is Charlotte comes out. They're trailing 17-3. Gardner-Webb goes down the field, gets a field goal. It's 20-3, right? Out of the break, you're already feeling like you're even a little bit further behind the 8 ball. I think after that possession, Charlotte started drawing up a ton of blitzes. I mean, they blitzed this guy 62% of the times. Ryan Osborne is drawing these up. Saw the 0 blitzes. The edges are stunning. There's a lot of different stuff happening. And the result, all 3 of Riddell's interceptions come when Charlotte blitzes. That's the game right there. If you don't make those plays, if Ali doesn't get 2, Mike Kelly doesn't get 1, they lose that game Saturday night.
I want to go back to the second quarter real quick, and I told you this in the press box, Hunter. At one point, I will sell these like notebooks that I've been writing since since 2022. Just like taking notes of all the games I go to because the stuff in here is hilarious. So second quarter, talked about bend don't break. The field goal misses. Remember, you talked about what if that field goal goes in?
Miss,
27-yard miss.
Bailout.
Bails them out, and I say, how do you capitalize? All right, well, here's how they do it. Bomb to gyrus smack. That's not a catch, but they speed it up quick. They snap it. You can't go back and review it.
Yep.
DeShawn Purdie fumbles the ball. Biff has a one-on-one talk with Purdie. I say, how do you bounce back? All right. Gardner-Webb QB starts to cook. But guess what?
All right.
Interception. Ali
Yep.
gets it again. So in a span of just like 5-6 minutes in the second quarter, a missed field goal, you get an interception. I write down the defense is doing their job. It's still 3-0. Charlotte goes deep, pass interference, Purdy interception again.
Yeah, and that's the
defense
pick
was
6.
doing their job. At a certain point, the bend don't break can't go for the entire game.
And I do want to say, I mean, holding them to the field goals that they did, Charlotte's low red defense inside the 10 kept them in that game because it could have easily been 14, 21-0 after that pick 6 in the first half. Like that, I agree with what you're saying, Joe.
And again, Henry Rutledge, Hannah, you are like a prophet, guru, whatever. Like Henry Rutledge, whenever he gets the ball, he just keeps making plays.
Give him the ball more.
Honestly, at this point.
Great space for him to run. My 2 cents.
So
Yeah.
what else do I have here? Yeah, I said this reminds me of the Olympics. USA versus Serbia, right? Where Serbia is just killing the USA. I'm texting Hunter. This is like Armageddon for me. I'm like, what is the state of basketball? Where are we? As a fan of basketball, like it's gotten so globalized where America isn't the top dogs anymore. They aren't top dogs. Jokic is, getting doubled and flashing it out to guys named Petrusev,
Yeah.
and Petrusev was killing America, right? And that's how I felt in the first half. And Biff said the same thing. Like, I wonder what you guys were gonna write in that first half. Well, yeah, because you were losing 17-3 to an FCS school.
Yeah.
You know, we were coming for your neck, but Trexler Ivey, guys, Trexler Ivey. And then tie game 2020 in the fourth quarter. And this is when we saw this at ECU, right, Hunter, where the defense had to be the side that makes the play. Can the defense come up with a stop here? You get another Ali interception. And we asked the defense, we asked Ali, we asked Reed Williford, we were like, hey, man, what's that like? What did you guys tell each other when you know, like, hey, here we go again? It comes down to, can we make a stop? And they say, there's no pressure. We relish this. We have a guy like Osborne. We have the necessary players to make these plays. So when you see a team, not just with Trex, but with the special teams and the defense coming in and having a cohesive win like that, it makes you feel good. And then when your coach says something like, you're about to play, it kind of just brings everything back down.
And that's part of it, right? I want to address one more thing about this game is as far as it being on the defense's shoulders. After Hassan Wilson's 39-yard touchdown, Charlotte's up, right? 27-20. You're feeling all right. There's about 5 minutes left in the game. And what has Charlotte's defense done in the second half? Get stops and take the ball away. They hadn't given up a touchdown since the end of the first half. And you're kind of feeling like they're about to win the game, whether it's a strip sack, whether it's another interception, any kind of takeaway. Gardner-Webb fought back, though. I mean, they went down the field. They made a couple huge plays to score and make it 26-27. They had a chance to win this game, guys. So, minute 55 on the clock. Go ahead, Jack.
Dog, wasn't it like a 4th and 12 or something they converted? And
Yeah.
everyone was just like, wait, what the heck just happened?
No, that's what I'm saying. They threw a deep ball. I mean, they connected on a circus catch deep ball down to the 1-yard line and scored their first rushing touchdown of the day to make it 26-27. I mean, they were there. Like, talk about an up and down day for the defense. That was the low, but they responded right after that. I mean, you know the game's on the line, right? We talk about hypotheticals. I think even if Gardner-Webb gets that too, Charlotte wins the game. Minute 55 on the clock. Trexler's cooking. They've hit a kick from 54 earlier in the game. Steven Rusnak. It had been Kyle Cunanan. They made the switch. I think it paid off. If he doesn't make that 54-yard kick at the end of the first half, they might not win that game. But Charlotte's defense held. They ran kind of the play that Tom Brady and the Patriots made famous. They bring a receiver in motion, trying to get him just like a quick throw right out to almost the slot. And Trayvon Booker and Dre Butler combine on the tackle, keep him out of the end zone, and that's the game. They weren't necessarily able to put the game away because Gardner-Webb would get another chance, but about 30 seconds on the clock. But they did what they needed to do to win that game. And it wasn't, I just want to say this really fast. It wasn't the win that you wanted, right? But one thing is for sure is winning in college football is hard regardless, and they got it done. Sean Brown said he was going to sleep good tonight. He was excited for whatever conditioning and running they had to do the next day, which Charlotte needs stuff like this, right? We looked at this non-con and said 1-3 was realistic. You were hoping for 2-2, and if you could catch lightning in a bottle and get to 3-1 or something like that, that would just be amazing. But going to Indiana, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, they need to pick up the pieces as a team, right? Because we saw spurts where every unit was elite, right? The defense had great moments in the second half. The offense was awesome in the fourth quarter. Special teams was solid the entire game. They're going to have to put that all together to win these league games that they're talking about, whether it's Ivy, whether it's Max Brown or Purdy at quarterback. There's a lot of moving pieces on this team. And I think the biggest thing, and mainly the biggest takeaway from Saturday night, the crowd was awesome. And despite a lot of these people leaving down 20-3, that was still an awesome crowd for Charlotte. And I'm going to plug Biff Poggi's comments on the crowd now, and we'll talk about that for just a minute.
Biff, I know you're not on social media at halftime, but it wasn't looking pretty from a lot of fans in Niner Nation. What kind of a statement do you hope this kind of win makes to the fan base about the resilience of this team and kind of, like you said, just the never quit attitude?
Well, you probably should have gotten all your money's worth by staying for the whole game. And for those that weren't here that were saying whatever they were saying on social media, just grow up. Grow up. Get out of your grandmother's basement and grow up.
Guys, I'll just say it like this. When he said that, I think me and you looked at each other, Jeremy. Like I chuckled a little bit because it's like, man, you can't. I don't know if going at the crowd after that performance is the right avenue. And as a second year head coach who's now 4-11, that's just not the right way following your second straight sellout at home.
I want to throw it to Hannah first. I'm not an alum of Charlotte. I know you two are, so I want to hear your guys' perspective. Like taking off your reporter caps for a second, like when you hear coaches say that, like I understand you're frustrated with the fan base, but yeah, Hannah, let's just hear your 2 cents on that.
Well, when I first heard that, and if I'm taking off my reporter hat, as an alumni, I don't want to hear that, because I will have to say Niner Nation has done nothing but support this football program year in and year out, despite the instability of it and the lack of wins. Like the crowd showing up for an FCS game, I think that's amazing. I mean, it's the second home game. It was family weekend, but they're continuing to show up for a team that still hasn't really put quality on the field. And the fan base is not the enemy. You know, it's not necessarily their fault for leaving when it's the fourth quarter and, you know, they feel like the game's over. That's not really their fault. If anything, you know, you need to take accountability for, yes, you know, we should have had a better product in the first half than we did in the second. You know, that's on me. That's on me as a head coach. And like Hunter said, it's hard to win in college football, you know, and it always sometimes comes down to the final second. But at the same time, you don't alienate the fan base who's continuing to buy tickets, sit in the seats, support the team. And all they want is to see who they're supporting win and this program to succeed. So I don't think that was the right call there. The last thing you want to do, especially in his position and this team's position, they need the support from the fans. They need the confidence, you know, that the fan base has in them to continue to produce wins. I don't know. I just don't think that was the smartest move and the best thing to say there.
Yeah, I just think you handle business when you're a 14-point favorite at home. And if you can't do that, then calling out the crowd probably isn't the way.
Here's my 2 cents on this. Like, Hannah, you said the perfect word. It was family weekend. And one thing that I really like on these Saturdays and even Sundays and is truly like parking in the CRI deck and walking from CRI to the stadium and seeing people tailgating, the parents with their kids, right?
People love this shit, dude.
And you're walking like the grass right outside the stadium and you see older couples, you know, just in camping chairs, just relaxing and having a beer and talking and just whatever. Then you see an RV and the people at the RV are playing music and they're having fun and they're dancing and there's some college students tailgating. And then you see a new family, you know, like parents in their 30s with 2 babies who are in like just barely walking around, just got their first steps in. And it makes you think that that family used to, like the people, that dad used to be the kid in a Niners, you know, like tiny t-shirt, right? Just cheering on the Niners. And they have memories of their family, their parents with them in the Niners gear. So when you alienate a fan base like that and you say things like that, you're forgetting that this fan base was here before you. They were here before Will Healy. They were here before whatever era you want to talk about. They are unwavering with their support. So just saying get out of your grandparents' basement, it's like my grandparent was a Niner fan.
Yeah.
And I was raised as a Niner fan. So I've had this support for 20 years. The first memories I have with my parents are going to these games. So time is everything. Time is money. Time is everything. When you dedicate your Saturdays to go to a game like this and you spend your hard-earned money and your time to go to games like this and you don't see the product you want, not only not seeing the product you want in a fashion like it was in the first half, you cannot blame the fans. because they just want to see you win. And when you come to interactive press conference and say we're going to go to the playoffs and you're fighting against an FCS school, the
At
lucky
home.
number is 6, Biff. Can you reach that bowl game? That's really what it's about. Fans just want to say, can we get a bowl game? Can we get a Cheez-It Bowl? Can we get I don't know, a Quaker
Famous
Oats Bowl?
toastery bowl.
A
Yeah.
famous toastery bowl. Can we get something to root for, you know? And they haven't seen that. So that's just like one of those things where maybe on Tuesday he'll walk it back. I think he
Yeah.
might. But just in the moment, man, that's the worst thing you could have said.
And I want to talk about the umbrella effect or like aspect of that, the macro, as Jeremy would say. What you see for this program, it starts at the top, right? This is Biff Poggi. This is Mike Hill. These are the hires. This has been the process. And Mike Hill was just received at 1:01 p.m. on Sunday. As soon as the NFL games kicked off, Mike Hill received, or at least word was released about Mike Hill receiving a 4-year contract extension. And I'm not going to act like Charlotte sports or football is the only sport at Charlotte. They've won numerous championships in the past couple of years, especially since Mike took over. They did join the American. There's been positive production as far as the athletic program is concerned. Like, I'm not taking anything away from Mike Hill on that. Football specific, though, is the biggest revenue sport. And this is your second hire. And this is his second season, and he's won 4 games, right? So the pressure is on as far as that goes. And we've talked about that on here at length. And all this, I mean, starting the season, 8 or 9 guys are hurt. We're talking about the strength and conditioning portion of the team. We're talking about the nutrition. Now they're 1-2, just needed their 3rd string quarterback to lead a comeback against an FCS team. That's the zoom out of this, right? Like that's the big picture of Charlotte needs to win games. It's been since 2019 since they were at a bowl game. 2021 was their last, I would say, competitive season. They go 5-7 that year. They beat Duke. But now it's been 660 plus days since you beat an FBS team at home. And the last quarterback to do that, Chris Reynolds, friend of the show. You can't expect continued support, especially if you take shots at the fans when they're not watching a good product, right? I think men's basketball has made strides, right? I think Aaron Fern is the right hire. I think what they have going on there is productive. I think the women's basketball hire is good. We talk about softball success with Ashley Chastain moving on. We talk about all these different programs that have had success at Charlotte, winning American Athletic Conferences, just now joining the league. Like they are moving in the right direction as an athletic department. But football is the biggest mouth to feed as far as a fan base, and that's where they're struggling.
Since we're on the fan thing, I think it's time for the mailbag. We got to find a jingle or something to kind of like intro the mailbag. But before we do that, should we take a break and get that Campus Co ad up in here?
Let's do it.
Are you ready to elevate your school spirit? Look no further than onecampusco.com. Whether you're in the classroom, on the field, or cheering from the stands, we're dedicated to bringing academics, athletics, alumni, and fans together. Founded by our alumni-owned parent company, One Chapter, in 2021, we recognize the need for quality apparel at reasonable prices and created a shopping experience that connects fans with their university. Join us in showcasing your pride and giving back to your community. With onecampusco.com, you're not just a student, athlete, or fan, you're part of a vibrant family. Together, let's celebrate what makes our university special. Visit us at www.charlotte.onecampusco.com using promo code HWY49 for 10% off. All right, let's get right into the mailbag now. I feel like with the extension of Mike Hill's contract, that kind of comes up in some of the questions that we got, and a few of those questions were, how hot is Biff/Mike Hill's seat right now? And obviously with the extension of Mike Hill, his seat's not too hot, but what about Biff, guys? What do you think?
I think this is interesting, right? Because had they lost that game Saturday night, I think it's on fire. Like, I think it's to a point of where are you going from here, right? Because you're going to Indiana next week. That's the only thing you do know. But they got it done. And I want to talk really fast about his commitment to Purdie. Like, he wants to win with his guys. He's made that very clear. He even said in the media day press conference that his influence on the offense last year was who would play quarterback. And that was clear. That was Jalen Jones. That was his showstopper. Max Brown was his guy this year. And Purdy was that second guy in charge. And I mean, I don't know if you can look at this different ways, but he was riding with DeShawn Purdie until the wheels literally fell off. Like that was where he was going Saturday night. And I think Trexler saved a lot of jobs. Jeremy mentioned that earlier. Like I think he saved optimism. He may have saved their season if they can turn what this has been around. And we don't know the specific timeline for Max Brown. He's walking around on the sideline in a sling. You can assume it's not going to be next week, maybe not the next few weeks. You're still kind of waiting an update on that. And I do want to say, too, that team is playing with a lot of injuries. Teron Kelman is out. Stone Handy is out. Prince Bima is out. Jaquarius Conley hasn't played. There are a lot of guys. Justin Olsen is another one that aren't on the field for this team that you would see on a regular Saturday. But as far as Mike Hill's seat, he's safe. I think he's safe for another coaching hire if Biff Poggi isn't the guy. So I think that's what that 4-year extension does, extending him to about 2030. He's got another cycle if they choose to do that, or if they choose to stick with Biff. That's how it'll roll. That's what I think, at least.
The Judy Rose building, when I walk in on Tuesday, better have a Trexler Ivey shrine in there. They gotta pay some respects to that guy. But kind of like what Hunter said, Mike isn't on a hot seat. You give him the extension right when Scott Hansen says, and we're off. 7 hours of commercial-free football starts now. So everyone's kind of wrapped up into that. But with Biff,
the timing is weird.
Timing is weird.
Do that before the season.
Yeah. I will say, like, when we say these things, we all know Mike personally, and he's a great guy. Biff also, like, him sticking the tongue out to you, Hunter,
yeah, that was funny,
the Chapel
man.
Hill press conference is like hilarious.
That's funny.
We're not, like banging on their character, but this is a job, right? And we have to evaluate them from that standpoint. Everyone knows you're gonna go into Indiana and probably get shellacked. That's the God honest truth. So the win this week or the win on Saturday buys you time because no one's going to fault you for losing to Indiana. It comes into play now, like when you get to the Tulanes or whatever on Halloween, like those big games when everyone's watching, those are the ones that's going to come back into play again. But for right now, I think he bought himself some time. I will say that the Mike Hill hire for me, or not hire, the extension for me, like Hunter said before this pod, it's another, well, you talk about the Hunter. What's that 4 years basically mean?
That's another cycle. That's another coach. I mean, at least in my mind, if I'm hiring a coach, I at least give him 4 years. Recruit a class. Go from freshmen to seniors. That's where it is in my mind.
Yeah. Well, to kind of flip that a little bit, I know there was mention of Steve Wilkes, igniting the second half, and we got a question from Zach Mead. Steve Wilkes season in CLT ? So what are your thoughts on that?
I think he's doing this program a really big favor.
Right.
And I don't think it's going to get any more than that. I think Steve Wilkes is an NFL head coach, and I think he'll either have a defensive coordinator job next season or be the head man somewhere, maybe even at the Carolina Panthers.
I don't need to add anything to that. He's got his eyes set on the NFL.
Yep, I agree. Tintin49 asked,
Tintin.
We met Tintin
Yeah.
first game against JMU. So shout out Tintin. He asked, why is the O-line struggling so much? They seem to not be able to protect the quarterback or, short of Wilson's TD, open up holes in the running game. And has Rutledge been told to not fair catch? And was Purdy told not to run?
It's a loaded question, Tim.
Yeah,
a lot of
Hunter, you
questions.
take that away, man.
All right. I think the offensive line had their best game protection-wise, pass protection-wise. I think they're still having trouble running the ball. And, I mean, they had 13 net rushing yards because sacks are included. DeShawn Purdie had negative 77 or 79. I can't remember off the top of my head. I know the rushing attack true tailbacks were 92 yards. Going against the FCS team, that's not enough in my mind. You have to... That's the game where you flex your muscles, right? That's a game where you, on paper and on the field, have the superior talent. You need to push forward with that. As far as Henry Rutledge fair catching, dude, he did take a couple hits, but I think anytime he can have the ball, is Charlotte has a chance to score. And in a game where they didn't do that for 3 quarters, I say I'm not let it fly because that's a dumb coaching decision, but like I'm not faulting him for trying to take those chances and make those plays. What was the
You know
last
when you're
question?
playing, you know when you're playing pickup basketball, and there's one guy who's clearly the best player on the team, and you can tell before the play even starts, he's shooting the shot. It's like, all
Yeah,
right, let me just space the floor and let me
go to the
crash the
corner.
basket to get a rebound. Yeah, let me just try and be of any help on this play because I know the shot's going up. That's how I feel with Henry. It's like, dog, he's not fair catching it. Like,
Yeah,
when the ball's in the air, Henry's like, hey, I'm gonna try to make a play here. Y'all got
Yeah.
to deal
yeah,
with it. But shout out to Henry because usually, more often than not, he does make those plays. What other questions did
yeah. I
he?
can't remember the last question.
All right,
Was Purdy told not to run?
I would say I don't think they're going to limit him. I think he was trying to extend some plays,
yeah.
but I would say no to that. I think he kind of had free reign to operate in the offense. At least I would say when you go to a true freshman quarterback, you limit the menu a little bit. You figure out what he likes and practice that week and go to work. But no, I don't think he was like told not to scramble.
I also mentioned to Hunter that like it looked like they were doing some contain a little bit, where hey,
Mhm.
don't let him get out on the sides, to left or right. If he wants to run, he's got to go up the middle and meet our linebacker face to face.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And he did a couple times.
and he did.
ND Laney for said the 2-point conversion decision. Why?
So I think he's talking about the when Charlotte scored to make it, it could have been 20-13. And analytics say at that point, go for two. If you're trailing by 14 and you score a touchdown, go for two because you're basically, you can give yourself the win if you convert the first one. If you don't get the first one, you have another shot to tie the game later. I think the play call on that first 2-point conversion is a terrible play call. Every receiver is running to the back of the end zone. There's nothing short. There's not much going on. Trexler has to sail the ball. I think the second 2-point conversion after this big Sean Brown catch where he is wide open in the end zone. I think that's a great play call. Shout out Mac Miller, Mike Miller for that. I think that was a bounce back, and I think he realized, okay, we have to get something easy here. This doesn't have to be a super complex play.
Hunter said everything that I was gonna say, but I will say quick shout out to Sean Brown for giving the little Steph Curry shrug after the touchdown. Remember
He's
that?
a
He's like, oh,
dog, man.
that's what I do.
That's
Normal
an.
Tuesday, normal Saturday for me. Hey, I just like the Moss people.
I just want to say this, man. He's been on the team for a few years. Like he's 3 catches for 31 yards last year, but he was on the team last year, and it kind of makes you wonder why he didn't get more burn. Because, as Chris mentioned, he's been this caliber player for a while, and I think you're seeing it come to fruition now for him. And by the way, he's probably my favorite interview they got right now. He's honest and he's funny and he lightens the room, and Charlotte needs that right now. So shout out Sean.
DJ who is asked, anyone notice how Biff thinks of football in baseball terms? Ivy is a reliever, not a starter. O linemen are on a pitch count. Rutledge is the DH on special teams. Mike is a big baseball fan. Is this targeted to him?
No, I didn't read too much into that at all. I think, I mean, Biff's been a football guy. He played back in the day at Pitt, graduated from Duke. I don't. I mean, if he is playing like 4D chess, just trying to keep Mike in the loop, that's shout out Biff for that. But nah, I think that's just how he talks.
Yeah, I do kind of get the reliever point where who knows what happens if Trex is in the whole game. Like I said earlier, this might be more flash in the pan, but Trex, like you said, we've seen it happen before. In terms of like doing like Mike Hill crazy mind games, I'm not there yet. I still have a tinfoil hat over my head.
Yeah, that's pretty much all of the questions that we got. We kind of answered the rest early on.
So let me hit Benjamin's then that he DM'd me on Twitter. He said he's not sure when we are having Chris on the next pod for a QB breakdown, which he was very happy to see. But he was saying that Mike Miller's play calling was a little weird, a little iffy, where he was, that Leonardo DiCaprio meme pointing at his TV, like pointing out what's gonna happen before it happens, So Hunter, and you want to kind of touch on that, where we saw that 7-yard hitch, and we're like, oh no, I'm getting flashbacks.
I think, all right, so I do want to say they opened the game and tried to take a shot. They tried to take a deep ball shot to Jairus Mack. They had one-on-one coverage. DeShawn felt pressure in the pocket. The ball didn't get thrown. I like that, right? That's DeShawn Purdie's strength. Throw the deep ball, push the ball down the field, and get your guy that just went for 118 yards last week, 3 of them on slot fades or just fades in general, the ball. I like that idea. I think they got away from the run. I mean, they didn't run the ball at all in the opening drive. I think a good running game is your true freshman quarterback's best friend. As far as some of the predictability, I think some of the plays were there. And I think that's what Biff was talking about with Trex. Because I don't necessarily think the entire playbook flipped. I think they ran quite a few of the same plays. We saw the same exact play, gyrish motion across the formation. That was the deep shot that Purdy hit to him. They ran that same play with Trexler. That's his only incompletion. That was the deep ball to Sean Brown. Just swap Jairus with Sean. That was the only incompletion he threw. I don't think it was a huge flip. I don't think this was necessarily Mike Miller's best game, but I do think some of those plays were there to be made. They just struggled. And I think part of that goes back to a big moment for an 18-year-old quarterback. And I think we're not going to fault him. We talked about that. And I think DeShawn Purdie, with given opportunity and has time to improve and find his footing in this offense, can be a good quarterback for Charlotte. And I think, I mean, we're talking about a dude that got here in the spring, and this is his first collegiate OC. I mean, this is big football for him. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't necessarily fault Mike for Saturday night, especially watching them kind of build on what they did in the fourth quarter. But I think that plays were there to be made, especially in the first half.
Being in the press box, good food
Yeah,
on
shout out.
Saturday. Good mac and cheese, got some pulled pork in there. It was good, but
Little
it
upgrade,
was
chicken
a
tenders.
little upgrade. Chicken supremes were out the window for the first time. It's like, okay. But on that Sean Brown touchdown, just the crazy one. And then the fourth down conversion too, where that's the game, and he does like a toe drag on the sideline. Like you
Oh man, I almost
fucking
forgot
you're
about that
like
play.
you maniac, dude. Like what the hell?
Extends all the way up for the ball. Yeah, dude.
Like come on, man. That's nasty. But I loved looking over at Chris after that touchdown, and he's pumping his fist. He's like, what they gonna say now? And it was so awesome to see that. And then to kind of ground it again, after the game, the last play goes up, Charlotte wins. See an older couple in the stands just hug. Like no words were exchanged. They just hugged. It was like a quiet, like very like, whew, we won that one.
Collective sigh of relief.
I have relief.
Right? Where it's like the student section kind of cleared out. Hey, let's start drinking.
Yeah.
It's the night is still young. I feel you guys, right? The older couple was just like, hey, man, through thick and thin. And that game ended and they hugged. Like they didn't say a word to each other. I was just watching them. I'm being nosy. Nosy Jay, back at it again.
I'll do that.
Right? But they just hugged, like no words, and then they just like got their stuff and left. And I was just like, wow, like that's what it's about at the end of the day. Those are the people that you're villainizing, like or you're vilifying. Like at a certain point, man, you've got to put out a better product because I never want to. The flip side of that is different, right? Where that couple, they plan their whole Saturday around this. They come to this event, they do all this stuff, they go home, and not the outcome they wanted. But seeing that type of stuff is just really cool, and I think the only way to see more of it is to put a better product on the field.
That's the thing too about Charlotte Stadium. I mean, it's an intimate setting.
It's
They're
intimate,
just,
man.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the boos come out when you don't perform, especially at home. And I think Charlotte's got some work to do. Their next home game is October 5th against ECU. Expect another sellout for that. I mean, that's the thing. Charlotte has a lot of big spots this year. You talked about Tulane, Thursday night game on ESPN. That game should sell out. Like, there's big moments for this team to show progress and show that this year's team is better than last year's team, i.e. Biff Poggi. So I think there is still optimism around the season. They've got to get some guys back. I mentioned some of the guys out, and I think it'll be interesting to see who plays quarterback on Saturday. But we'll be back out of practice Tuesday, and we'll give you guys everything we can on that front.
Sorry, guys. I keep thinking of stuff. Charlotte's jerseys, I gotta tip my cap. Jerseys looking clean, guys.
They
Looking
look
nice
good.
and clean. The JMU game, like that, what was it?
Gold.
That gold versus the purple. Great jersey matchup color. And
All
then
white in Chapel Hill is
all
sick.
white and chap, got the green. Like, come on, man. You guys were, yeah. And I thought about it because I was watching Sunday night football game, and the Texans versus the Bears uni combo was like, woof.
Oh, yeah.
Cooking this football season. But yeah, man, can't wait to get to the next pod, and like Hunter said, we will be at the press conference tomorrow.
Definitely. And this one we recorded Monday. Normally we record Tuesday nights, so we're ahead of the presser, but got some work travel this week, and gotta watch the Eagles get this dub tonight. You see the Jason Kelce jersey? Jason Kelce.
Hey.
But yeah, shout out to you guys for listening to the pod. We're going to keep putting out content. We're going to have some players on the show, current players, the next few weeks, trying to get that lined up with some of the SID staff. So as always, appreciate you tuning in to the Highway 49 pod, and we'll be back soon.